The evening sky was painted with shades of orange and purple as Jake Wilson drove down the quiet suburban road. His old blue pickup truck hummed along, the radio playing softly in the background. Jake had just dropped off his 10-year-old daughter Lily at her friend's house for a weekend sleepover. It was the first time in months that he would have an evening to himself, and he was looking forward to ordering pizza and watching the game without having to share the TV remote. Life as a single dad wasn't easy. After his wife left them 3 years ago, Jake had thrown himself into being the best father he could be. Between his job as a mechanic at the local auto shop and taking care of Lily, he barely had time to breathe, let alone think about dating or his own social life. The drive home usually took about 15 minutes, and Jake was mentally calculating whether he had enough time to stop by the grocery store before the game started when something caught his eye. At the bus stop on the corner of Maple and Pine Street sat a woman in a wedding dress. Even from a distance, Jake could tell she was crying, her shoulders shaking as she buried her face in her hands. Jake slowed down, unsure if he should stop. His natural instinct was to help, but he had learned to be careful about getting involved in other people's problems. Still, the sight of a bride in distress on what should have been the happiest day of her life tugged at his heartstrings. What the heck? He muttered to himself, pulling over to the curb. He rolled down the passenger window and called out, "Hey there, are you okay?" The woman looked up, startled. Her makeup was smeared, black mascara trails running down her cheeks. The elaborate wedding dress she wore was slightly muddy at the hem, and her veil was crumpled in her lap. Despite her disheveled appearance, Jake couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was. "I'm fine," she said automatically, wiping at her tears with the back of her hand. "Just waiting for the bus." Jake glanced at the bus schedule posted on the stop. Last bus left 20 minutes ago. Next one isn't for another hour. Fresh tears welled up in the woman's eyes. "Of course," she said, letting out a bitter laugh. "Why would today be any different?" Jake hesitated, then made a decision. "Look, I don't usually do this, but you seem like you're having a rough day. I'm Jake. I can give you a ride somewhere if you need it." The woman studied him for a moment, clearly weighing her options. Jake knew what she saw, a 35-year-old man with 3-day stubble, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans, driving an old pickup that had seen better days. He probably didn't look like the safest bet, but he hoped his genuine concern showed through. "I'm Olivia," she finally said, "and yes, I could really use a ride right now, if you're sure you don't mind." Jake nodded and reached across to open the passenger door. "Hop in, where are you headed?" Olivia gathered up her dress and veil and made her way to the truck. Getting in was a challenge with all the fabric, but she managed it with a grace that surprised Jake. "I don't actually know," she admitted once she was settled. "I just needed to get away." "Far away?" Jake raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. It wasn't his place to pry. "Well, I was just heading home. There's a diner about 10 minutes from here that stays open late. Maybe you could figure out your next move over a cup of coffee." Olivia nodded gratefully. "That sounds perfect. Thank you." They drove in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the soft country music playing on the radio and the occasional sniffle from Olivia. Jake kept his eyes on the road, giving her the space to collect herself. "I left him at the altar," Olivia suddenly blurted out. 200 guests, a 5-tier cake, and a string quartet. "And I just ran," Jake whistled low. "That must have taken some courage." Olivia turned to look at him, surprise evident on her face. "You don't think I'm terrible?" "It's not my place to judge," Jake said simply. "But I figure it takes a lot more courage to walk away from something that doesn't feel right than to go through with it, just because everyone expects you to." A small smile tugged at the corner of Olivia's mouth. Thank you. Most people wouldn't see it that way." "Well, I'm not most people," Jake said with a shrug. "And for what it's worth, I think you're brave. Walking away from something that big, knowing what people will say, that takes guts." Olivia looked down at her hands, twisting the engagement ring she still wore. It caught the light from the street lamps they passed, the diamond so large it seemed almost comical on her slender finger. "His name is Robert," she said quietly. "We've been together for 2 years. Everyone thought we were perfect for each other." Jake nodded, encouraging her to continue but not pushing. "He's successful, handsome, charming when he wants to be. My parents adored him. My friends were jealous. But the closer we got to the wedding, the more I felt like I was disappearing." "Disappearing?" Jake prompted gently when she fell silent. Like I was becoming an accessory to his life rather than a partner, Olivia explained. This morning he was talking about our honeymoon plans, and he mentioned that he'd scheduled a meeting with a doctor in Paris to discuss options because he wanted to start a family right away. Options? Fertility treatments, Olivia clarified. Which would be fine if we had discussed it, but we hadn't. He'd just decided. And when I pointed that out, he patted my hand like I was a child and said, "Don't worry your pretty head about it. I've got it all planned out." Jake winced. Ouch. Yeah, Olivia agreed. And that's when I realized it wasn't just about the baby thing. It was about everything. Where we'd live, what I'd wear, who I'd be friends with. He had it all mapped out and none of it included what I wanted. They pulled into the parking lot of the diner, a retro-style place with neon signs and checkerboard floors. Jake turned off the engine but didn't move to get out. "So you ran," he said, not a question but a statement. Olivia nodded. "I told my maid of honor I needed a minute alone. Went out the back door of the church, ran 6 blocks in heels, and then took them off and kept going. I had my phone and a little cash in a pocket my friend had sewn into the dress, but nothing else." "No regrets?" Jake asked. Olivia took a deep breath, seeming to consider the question seriously. "No," she said finally. "No regrets. Just a lot of uncertainty about what comes next." Jake smiled at her, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. "Well, let's start with coffee and maybe some pie. Everything seems a little less scary on a full stomach." Olivia returned his smile, and for the first time since he'd picked her up, the smile reached her eyes too. "That sounds like a good plan. And Jake, thank you. Not just for the ride, but for not thinking I'm crazy." "Trust me," Jake said as he opened his door. "I've seen crazy and you're not it. You're just someone who was brave enough to choose yourself when it mattered most." As they walked into the brightly lit diner, Olivia still in her wedding dress and Jake in his worn jeans and t-shirt, they made an odd pair. But there was something about the way they talked, easy and without pretense, that made it seem like they'd known each other for years rather than minutes. And for the first time in a long while, both of them felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. The waitress at the diner did a double take when Jake and Olivia walked in. It wasn't every day that a woman in a wedding dress and a man in worn jeans and a faded t-shirt came in for late-night coffee. But to her credit, the older woman simply smiled and led them to a corner booth away from the few other customers. "Well, honey, either you're celebrating or drowning your sorrows," the waitress said to Olivia with a kind smile as she handed them menus. Her name tag read Betty. "Either way, pie's on the house." Olivia managed a small laugh. "Thank you. I think I'm somewhere in between celebrating and drowning my sorrows, to be honest." Betty nodded wisely. "Those are often the same thing in my experience. I'll give you 2 a minute to decide." Once Betty walked away, Olivia looked around the diner with curious eyes. The place was straight out of the 1950s, with red vinyl booths, a jukebox in the corner, and black and white photos of the town from decades ago lining the walls. It was warm, welcoming, and about as far from the fancy reception hall where she should have been right now as possible. "I like this place," she said, relaxing a bit for the first time since Jake had found her. "Best pie in 3 counties, Jake said with a smile. "And the coffee's not bad either." They ordered coffee and cherry pie when Betty returned and then fell into an awkward silence. Now that they were sitting across from each other in the bright lights of the diner, both seemed to realize how strange their situation was. Jake cleared his throat. "So, do you have somewhere to go tonight? Friends or family you can call?" Olivia's face fell. "Not really. My parents are at the wedding, or what was supposed to be the wedding. They're probably furious with me. My best friend was my maid of honor, but she's also dating Robert's business partner, so that's complicated." "No other family?" Jake asked gently. "My sister lives in Australia. We're close, but she's literally on the other side of the world," Olivia said, twisting her napkin in her hands. "I haven't really thought this through very well, have I?" "Hey, cut yourself some slack," Jake said, reaching across the table to stop her from shredding the napkin completely. His hand briefly touched hers, and they both pulled back quickly. "You made a tough call in an impossible situation. The details can be figured out." Betty arrived with their coffee and pie per vidi. "Nang a welcome distraction." Olivia took a bite of the pie and closed her eyes in appreciation. "Oh my God, you weren't kidding. This is amazing." Jake grinned, glad to see her enjoying something. Told you. Local cherries, homemade crust. Bet he won't give anyone the recipe. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Jake found himself studying Olivia when she wasn't looking. There was something about her that intrigued him, a strength beneath the obvious vulnerability of her current situation. So, Olivia said after a while, you mentioned you were dropping your daughter off at a friend's house? Tell me about her. Jake's face lit up immediately. Lily. She's 10 and the smartest kid I've ever met. Not just book smart, though she definitely gets better grades than I ever did. She's people smart, you know, picks up on things most adults miss. She sounds wonderful, Olivia said with a genuine smile. You must be proud. Every day, Jake agreed. Even when she's driving me crazy asking a million questions I don't know how to answer. Like what? Olivia asked, genuinely curious. Last week it was, Dad, if the universe is always expanding, what is it expanding into? Jake laughed. I work on engines, not astrophysics. I had no idea. Olivia laughed, a real laugh this time. What did you tell her? I said we'd look it up together. We spent the whole evening watching videos about space on the internet. I'm still not sure I understand it, but she seemed satisfied, Jake said with a fond smile. That's kind of our thing. When she has a question I can't answer, we make it a project to find out together. That's really sweet, Olivia said softly. She's lucky to have you. Jake shrugged, looking down at his coffee. I'm the lucky one. After her mom left, Lily was the only thing that kept me going some days. Olivia's expression turned sympathetic. How long ago was that? 3 years, Jake said, stirring his coffee absently. We'd been having problems for a while, but I thought we were working through them. Then one day I came home and she was gone. Left a note saying she wasn't cut out to be a wife and mother. I'm sorry, Olivia said, and Jake could tell she meant it. It was rough for a while, he admitted. Mostly for Lily. She didn't understand why her mom didn't say goodbye, why she only calls on birthdays and Christmas now. That must be hard for both of you. Jake nodded. It is what it is. We've made our peace with it as best we can. Created our own little team, you know? They fell silent again. But it was a comfortable silence now. The ice well and truly broken. Olivia found herself feeling oddly at ease with this man she'd just met. There was something solid and real about Jake. A genuineness that she found refreshing after years in Robert's world of appearance and pretense. Can I ask you something? Jake said after they'd both finished their pie. What do you do? I mean for work or whatever. Olivia hesitated. This was where things usually got complicated. I'm a software engineer. I specialize in AI development. Jake's eyebrows shot up. Wow, that's impressive. So you're basically a genius? Olivia laughed. Hardly. I'm good at what I do, but there are plenty of people smarter than me in the field. Still, that's really cool, Jake said, and his admiration seemed completely genuine, with none of the intimidation or disbelief she often got when people learned about her job. So how did you meet? What was his name, Robert? We met at a tech conference, Olivia explained. I was presenting some research and he came up to talk to me afterward. He owns a tech investment firm and was interested in the company I was working for at the time. Did he invest? Jake asked. Olivia nodded. Yes, and eventually he bought the company outright. That's when we started dating. So he became your boss and your boyfriend at the same time? Jake asked, frowning slightly. I didn't think of it that way at the time, but yes, essentially, Olivia admitted. Looking back, I can see that the power dynamic was problematic. Did you keep working after he bought the company? For a while, Olivia said, a note of sadness entering her voice. But once we got engaged, Robert started talking about how I wouldn't need to work anymore. How I could focus on more important things, by which he meant planning parties and being the perfect corporate wife. But you loved your work, Jake said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Olivia whispered. I do. Creating something from nothing. Solving problems that no one else has solved. There's nothing like it, so what did you do? I kept working, but Robert made it increasingly difficult. Scheduling important social events during my work hours, questioning why I was still bothering with projects when we had more than enough money. Olivia sighed. About 6 months ago, I found out he'd gone behind my back and told my team to exclude me from a major project because he thought I was too stressed and needed to focus on the wedding. Jake winced. That's controlling behavior, you know. I know, Olivia agreed quietly. I think I always knew, but I kept making excuses. He was under a lot of pressure. He just wanted what was best for me. He came from a traditional family with certain expectations. But today was the last straw? Jake prompted gently. Olivia nodded, twisting her engagement ring again. The fertility doctor thing was part of it. But it was also, when I was getting ready this morning, Robert's mother came to see me. She gave me this speech about how lucky I was that her son had chosen me, and how I needed to remember that his career and reputation always came first. Wow, Jake said, shaking his head. Mother-in-law from hell. The thing is, Olivia continued, I realized she was just saying out loud what Robert had been implying all along. That I should be grateful. That I was lucky to have been chosen by him. As if I was some prize he'd won rather than a person with my own dreams and ambitions. So you walked out, Jake said with respect in his voice. So I walked out, Olivia confirmed. She suddenly twisted the enormous diamond ring off her finger and set it on the table between them. And I'm not going back. Jake looked at the ring and let out a low whistle. That's some rock. 3 carats, Olivia said with a humorless laugh. Robert said anything smaller wouldn't make the right statement. The right statement about what? About him, Olivia said simply. About his success, his wealth, his power. It was never really about me or what I might want. Jake shook his head, clearly disgusted. This guy sounds like a real piece of work. He can be charming when he wants to be, Olivia said, then corrected herself. No, he is charming. That's what makes it so confusing. He can make you feel like the most special person in the world 1 minute, and then completely dismiss your feelings the next. Classic manipulation, Jake observed. My ex was like that in some ways. Not with money, we never had much, but with emotions. Building you up just to tear you down keeps you off balance, makes you easier to control. Olivia looked at Jake with new appreciation. That's exactly it. How did you get so insightful about relationships? Jake shrugged. Therapy. After Tracy left, I was a mess. Not just because she was gone, but because I couldn't understand how I'd missed the signs, how I'd failed so completely. My sister finally dragged me to a therapist. Best thing she ever did for me. That takes courage, Olivia said softly. Facing your own pain like that. It wasn't courage so much as necessity, Jake admitted. I had to get my head straight for Lily's sake. Betty came by to refill their coffee cups, eyeing the diamond ring on the table but making no comment. You two doing okay here? We're good, thanks, Betty, Jake assured her. When Betty had moved on, Olivia looked at her watch and was startled to see that it was nearly midnight. They had been talking for hours. I should figure out where I'm going to stay tonight, she said reluctantly. Is there a hotel nearby? Jake thought for a moment. There's the Pine View Motel about a mile from here. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and safe. That sounds perfect, Olivia said, then bit her lip. But I just realized, I don't have any clothes except this dress and only about $60 cash. My credit cards are all linked to accounts that Robert can access. Jake hesitated, then made a decision. I have a spare room. It's small. Was supposed to be an office, but mostly collects laundry I haven't folded yet. But you're welcome to crash there tonight if you want. No pressure either way. Olivia studied him, trying to gauge his intentions. All she saw was kindness and a genuine desire to help. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. It's not imposing if I'm offering, Jake said with a smile. Besides, my mom would haunt me from the grave if she knew I'd left a woman with nowhere to go. Olivia laughed softly. Your mom sounds like she was a wise woman. The wisest, Jake agreed. So what do you say? It's just for tonight, and tomorrow we can figure out next steps when we've both had some sleep. Olivia took a deep breath. 24 hours ago, she would never have imagined herself accepting an offer to stay at a stranger's house. But Jake didn't feel like a stranger anymore, and her alternatives were limited. Thank you, she said finally. I accept your kind offer, but only if you let me help with breakfast tomorrow as a thank you. Jake grinned. Deal. Though I should warn you, I make a mean pancake. The bar is high. Challenge accepted, Olivia said, matching his smile. As they paid the bill, Jake insisting despite Olivia's protests, and headed back to his truck. Olivia carefully put the engagement ring in the small pocket of her dress. She wasn't sure what she'd do with it. Legally, she supposed it was hers to keep, but it felt tainted now. A sigh. Symbol of everything she'd nearly trapped herself in. In the truck, as Jake started the engine, Olivia turned to him. Thank you. Not just for the room, but for listening. For not judging. Jake glanced at her. his expression serious. "Everyone deserves to be heard, Olivia. And from what I can tell, you made the right call today, hard as it was." As they drove through the quiet streets toward Jake's house, Olivia felt something she hadn't expected to feel when she ran from the church hours earlier. Hope. Whatever came next would be difficult. She had no illusions about that. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt like she was moving toward something better rather than running away from something bad. And somehow, that made all the difference. Jake's house was a modest two-bedroom bungalow on a quiet street lined with similar homes. The front yard was small but well kept, with a wooden swing hanging from the branch of an old oak tree. As he pulled into the driveway, Jake felt a sudden wave of self-consciousness. His home was nothing fancy, certainly nothing like what Olivia must be used to. "Home sweet home," he said, trying to sound casual as he turned off the engine. "It's not much, but it's ours." Olivia looked at the house with genuine appreciation. "It's lovely. It looks like a real home." Jake smiled, relieved by her reaction. "Thanks. Lily and I have been fixing it up bit by bit. The kitchen's new to us. Found some cabinets at a salvage yard and refinished them myself." They got out of the truck, and Jake grabbed his keys from his pocket. As they walked up to the front porch, he quickly tried to remember if he'd cleaned up that morning. Had he left dishes in the sink? Were Lily's toys scattered everywhere? He couldn't remember, and it was too late to worry about it now. "Sorry for any mess," he said as he unlocked the door. "Wasn't expecting company." Olivia smiled. "After the day I've had, a little mess is the least of my concerns." Jake flipped on the lights as they entered, revealing a cozy living room with a worn but comfortable-looking couch, a coffee table covered in what appeared to be a half-finished puzzle, and bookshelves crammed with a mix of adult and children's books. The walls were painted a warm yellow and decorated with framed photos and children's artwork. "It's perfect," Olivia said softly, and Jake could tell she meant it. "Let me show you to the spare room," he said, leading her down a short hallway. "Bathroom's right across from it. Towels in the cabinet under the sink if you want to shower." The spare room was small, with a twin bed that Jake had hastily made up with fresh sheets after his last laundry day. A small desk was pushed against, one wall covered with papers and a few of Lily's school projects that Jake hadn't yet found a place for. A basket of clean laundry sat in one corner. "Sorry about the laundry," Jake said, moving to grab the basket. "I'll get this out of your way." "Please don't worry about it," Olivia said, putting a hand on his arm to stop him. "It's fine, really. I'm just grateful for a place to stay." Jake nodded, suddenly aware of how close they were standing in the small room. He took a step back, clearing his throat. "Right. Well, I'll let you get settled. Do you want something to sleep in? I can lend you a t-shirt or something." "That would be amazing," Olivia said gratefully. "This dress is beautiful, but it's not exactly comfortable for sleeping." "I'll grab something," Jake said, disappearing to his room. He returned a moment later with a soft gray t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants with a drawstring waist. "These might be huge on you, but they're clean." Olivia took the clothes with a smile. "Thank you, they look perfect." "Well, I'll let you get some rest," Jake said, backing toward the door. "If you need anything, I'm just down the hall. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen if you get hungry." "Thank you, Jake," Olivia said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "For everything today. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." Jake shrugged, a little embarrassed by her thanks. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Olivia said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Trust me." Jake nodded, accepting her words. "Well, good night then. Sleep well?" "Good night," Olivia replied softly. Jake closed the door and went to his own room, his mind spinning with the day's unexpected turn of events. He changed into his usual sleep attire, basketball shorts and an old t-shirt, and went to brush his teeth. As he got ready for bed, he could hear the sound of the shower running and tried not to think about the beautiful woman currently in his bathroom. This was crazy, right? He'd picked up a runaway bride and brought her to his house. What had he been thinking? But as Jake climbed into bed, he knew he'd do it again in a heartbeat. There had been something about Olivia's distress that he couldn't ignore. And now that he knew her story, he was glad he'd stopped to help. Meanwhile, Olivia stood under the hot spray of the shower, letting the water wash away the remains of her wedding makeup and the stress of the day. She'd managed to get out of the elaborate dress on her own, though it hadn't been easy. Now, she watched mascara-tinged water swirl down the drain. She felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, fear, exhaustion, and unexpectedly, a glimmer of excitement about the future. After her shower, she put on Jake's clothes, which were indeed far too big but wonderfully comfortable. The t-shirt smelled faintly of laundry detergent and something else, something uniquely Jake. It was comforting in a way she hadn't expected. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, taking in her clean face, damp hair, and borrowed clothes. She barely recognized herself, and yet she felt more like herself than she had in a long time. Back in the spare room, Olivia crawled into the twin bed and pulled the covers up. The sheets were soft and smelled freshly washed. Despite the tumult of the day, she fell asleep almost instantly. Jake, on the other hand, lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't help but wonder what Robert was like, this man who had almost married Olivia. A controlling rich guy, clearly, but there must have been something good about him for Olivia to have agreed to marry him in the first place. Jake tried to picture him, probably tall, handsome, confident, the kind of man who commanded attention just by walking into a room. Everything Jake wasn't, in other words. Not that it mattered. Olivia would be gone tomorrow, off to figure out her new life, and Jake would go back to his regular routine: work, taking care of Lily, trying to make ends meet. Their worlds had intersected briefly, but they weren't meant to overlap for long. With that sobering thought, Jake finally drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Jake woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of movement in the kitchen. For a moment, he was disoriented. Who was in his house? Then he remembered. Olivia, the runaway bride. He got up, quickly brushed his teeth, and ran a hand through his sleep-mussed hair before heading to the kitchen. There he found Olivia, still in his oversized clothes, standing at the stove flipping pancakes. "Morning," he said, trying not to stare at how cute she looked with her hair pulled up in a messy bun. His sweatpants rolled several times at the waist to keep them from falling down. Olivia turned and smiled. "Good morning. I hope you don't mind. I found the pancake mix and thought I'd make good on my promise to help with breakfast." "Not at all," Jake said, moving to the coffee pot to pour himself a cup. "I'm impressed you found everything." "Your kitchen is very logically organized," Olivia said with approval. "Much better than mine, I mean Robert's. I was always looking for things in that massive kitchen." Jake leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee and watching as she expertly flipped another pancake. "You're good at that." "Years of practice," Olivia said with a smile. "My dad taught me to make pancakes when I was 8. Sunday morning tradition." "That's nice," Jake said. "My dad wasn't much for cooking. Mom did all that. When she died, it was a lot of takeout until I figured it out." Olivia glanced at him sympathetically. "How old were you?" "When Mom died." 19, Jake said. "Cancer. Dad followed a few years later. Heart attack." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "That must have been hard." Jake shrugged. "It was, but it's been a long time now." He changed the subject, not wanting to dwell on sad memories. "So what's the plan for today? Do you need a ride somewhere?" Olivia turned off the stove and put the last pancake on the stack she'd already made. "I honestly don't know. I should call my sister in Australia, see if she can wire me some money for a hotel until I figure things out." Jake nodded, then noticed Olivia's phone on the counter. The screen was lighting up repeatedly. "Looks like your phone's blowing up." Olivia glanced at it and sighed. "It's been doing that since I turned it on this morning. Mostly texts from Robert and my parents. A few from friends. I'm not ready to deal with any of them yet." Jake carried the plates of pancakes to the small kitchen table, while Olivia brought the coffee pot over to refill their cups. "You don't have to decide everything right now, you know. You can stay here another night if you need to." Olivia looked up in surprise. "Really? You wouldn't mind?" "Not at all," Jake assured her. Like I said, the room's just collecting laundry otherwise. That's incredibly kind of you, Olivia said, her relief evident. I promise I won't impose for long, just until I can figure out my next steps. They ate breakfast together, the conversation flowing easily between them. Jake couldn't remember the last time he'd enjoyed someone's company this much. There was something refreshing about Olivia's directness, our intelligence and the way she listened intently when he spoke, as if whatever he had to say was genuinely interesting to her. After breakfast, Jake remembered he needed to pick up a few things from the store. I have to make a quick run to the grocery store. You're welcome to come along, or you can stay here if you prefer. I'll stay if that's okay, Olivia said. I should really call my sister, and I'd rather do that in private. Of course, Jake said. I won't be long, just need to grab milk and a few other things. While Olivia called her sister, Jake drove to the local supermarket. As he was selecting a gallon of milk, he passed by a rack of newspapers and froze when a headline caught his eye. Tech billionaire left at the altar. Robert Reed's bride vanishes during ceremony. Jake grabbed the paper, staring at the photo accompanying the article. There was Robert Reed, looking suitably devastated for the camera, surrounded by concerned-looking guests. And there, in a smaller inset photo, was Olivia in her wedding dress, the same dress she'd been wearing when Jake found her at the bus stop. Jake quickly paid for the milk and the newspaper and hurried back to his truck. Once inside, he read the article with growing disbelief. Robert Reed was not just rich, he was one of the wealthiest men in the country, the founder and CEO of Reed Technologies, a company valued at billions of dollars. The article described him as devastated and concerned for his fiancée's safety, and quoted him saying he feared she had been coerced or confused because Olivia would never willingly abandon our life together. The article went on to mention that Reed was offering a substantial reward for information, leading to Olivia's safe return, and that private investigators had been hired to track her down. Jake sat in his truck, stunned. Olivia hadn't just left any groom. She'd left one of the most powerful men in the tech industry, a man with virtually unlimited resources at his disposal. No wonder she'd seemed so worried about what would come next. He drove home slowly, trying to decide what to do with this information. Should he tell Olivia he knew, or wait for her to tell him herself? Was she in danger, was he? When Jake arrived home, he found Olivia sitting on the couch looking pensive. How did the call with your sister go? He asked, setting the grocery bag on the kitchen counter. Good, Olivia said, managing a small smile. She's going to wire me some money, enough to get me started somewhere new. She offered to buy me a ticket to Australia, but I'm not sure that's the right move right now. Jake nodded, then took a deep breath. Olivia, I need to show you something. He pulled out the newspaper and handed it to her. Olivia's face paled as she saw the headline and photos. Oh no, she whispered. I was hoping to have more time before this went public. So it's true? Robert Reed is a billionaire? Jake asked, sitting down beside her on the couch. Olivia nodded miserably. Yes. I should have told you last night, but I was enjoying just being treated like a normal person for once. Not as Robert Reed's fiancé or some kind of trophy. Hey, it's okay, Jake assured her. I understand why you wouldn't want to lead with that. But Olivia, this article says he's hired private investigators to find you. Are you in danger? Olivia sighed, looking down at the paper. Not physical danger, no. Robert would never hurt me, at least not in that way. But he hates losing, and in his mind, I belong to him. He won't stop looking. What are you going to do? Jake asked, genuinely concerned for her. Olivia looked up at him, determination in her eyes. I need to disappear for a while. Start fresh somewhere he won't think to look. The money from my sister will help, but I need to be smart about this. Jake hesitated, then made an impulsive offer. You could stay here until you figure things out. I mean, who would think to look for a billionaire's runaway bride in a mechanic's spare room? Olivia laughed despite herself. You make a good point. Then her expression turned serious. But Jake, I can't ask that of you. Robert has resources I can't even begin to describe. If he found out you helped me, he could make your life very difficult. Let me worry about that, Jake said firmly. Besides, it's just until you figure out your next move. Lily comes back tomorrow evening. You could meet her and we'll tell her you're an old friend who needs a place to stay for a bit. Kids are adaptable. Olivia studied him, clearly torn. Are you sure? This isn't your problem to solve. Sometimes people just need a helping hand, Jake said simply. You can stay as long as you need to. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them back. Thank you. I promise I'll find a way to repay your kindness someday. Jake smiled. Just promise me one thing. When you're back on your feet and running your own tech company or whatever amazing thing you're going to do next, remember that not all guys are like Robert. Some of us are just regular people trying to do the right thing. Olivia reached out and squeezed his hand. I don't think there's anything regular about you. Jake, you're extraordinary in all the ways that really matter. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them. A connection that neither had expected but both felt deeply. Then Jake's phone rang, breaking the moment. It was Lily, calling to say hi before her friend's mom took them to the zoo. As Jake chatted with his daughter, Olivia watched him, her heart full of gratitude and something else, something she wasn't quite ready to name. Whatever came next would be complicated and probably difficult, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. And that, she realized, was worth more than all of Robert's billions. The next few days fell into a surprisingly comfortable routine. Olivia borrowed some of Jake's clothes, rolling up the sleeves and pant legs, and they made a quick trip to a discount store for some essentials. A toothbrush, simple toiletries, and a few items of clothing that actually fit her. She kept a low profile, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap borrowed from Jake whenever they ventured out, though the small town seemed far removed from the media frenzy surrounding her disappearance. On Sunday evening, Lily returned from her friend's house. Jake had already told Olivia a lot about his daughter, but meeting her in person was something else entirely. The 10-year-old was a miniature version of Jake with the same warm brown eyes and easy smile, but she had an energy and curiosity all her own. Dad. I'm home, Lily called as she burst through the front door, dropping her backpack on the floor. Jake emerged from the kitchen to greet her with a hug. Hey, kiddo. Did you have fun? It was awesome. We went to the zoo and saw the new baby elephants and then had pizza and stayed up late watching movies, Lily said in one breath. Then she noticed Olivia sitting on the couch and stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening with curiosity. Lily, I want you to meet Olivia, Jake said, gesturing for his daughter to come closer. She's a friend who's going to stay with us for a little while. Lily approached Olivia, studying her with unabashed interest. Are you Dad's girlfriend, Lily? Jake admonished, his cheeks reddening. Olivia laughed, not at all offended. No, I'm just a friend who needed a place to stay for a bit. It's nice to meet you, Lily. Your dad has told me so much about you. Like what? Lily asked, plopping down on the couch next to Olivia. Like how you're super smart and ask really good questions, Olivia replied. And how you love puzzles and science and chocolate chip pancakes. Lily grinned, clearly pleased. Dad makes the best pancakes. Can you make anything good? I make pretty decent cookies, Olivia offered. Maybe we could bake some together while I'm here, if that's okay with your dad. Lily turned to Jake with pleading eyes. Can we, Dad, please? Jake smiled, relieved that the introduction was going well. Sure, why not? But first, how about you go unpack your bag and get ready for dinner? We're having spaghetti, okay? Lily agreed, bouncing off the couch. At the doorway, she turned back. I'm glad you're staying with us, Olivia. Dad doesn't have many friends over. With that innocent but somewhat embarrassing observation, Lily disappeared down the hallway to her room. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, looking sheepish. Sorry about that. Kids, you know. No filter, Olivia smiled. She's wonderful. So full of life and completely honest. It's refreshing. Yeah, refreshing is one word for it, Jake said with a chuckle. Sometimes it's more like mortifying. But I wouldn't change her for the world. The three of them had dinner together, with Lily dominating the conversation, telling Olivia all about her weekend adventures at the zoo and peppering her with questions about where she was from and what she did for work. Olivia answered truthfully but vaguely, saying she worked with computers and was from the city a few hours away. After dinner, Jake helped Lily with her homework while Olivia cleaned up the kitchen, insisting it was the least she could do. Later, they all played a board game before Lily's bedtime. Watching Jake with his daughter, Olivia felt a pang in her heart, not of jealousy exactly, but of longing for something she'd never had. A simple, loving family life, built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than appearances and expectations. The next morning brought a new challenge. Jake had to work and Lily had school. Olivia would be alone in the house all day. "You sure you'll be okay?" Jake asked as he prepared to leave, Lily already waiting by the door, backpack on. "I can try to get the day off if you're worried." "I'll be fine," Olivia assured him. "Really. I have some thinking to do anyway, and I need to figure out my next steps." Jake nodded, but still looked concerned. "Keep the doors locked, okay? And call me if you need anything. My number's by the phone in the kitchen." "Dad, we're going to be late." Lily called impatiently. Jake smiled ruefully. "Duty calls. See you this evening?" "I'll be here," Olivia promised. After they left, Olivia spent the morning doing some research on Jake's laptop. She checked the news, wincing at the continued coverage of her disappearance. Robert had given an emotional interview, pleading for her to come home and suggesting that she might have been overwhelmed by pre-wedding jitters, or possibly suffering from some kind of breakdown. It was a masterful performance, painting himself as the worried, devoted fiancé while subtly undermining her mental stability. Olivia knew she needed a plan. The money from her sister had arrived, enough to get her started somewhere new, but she needed to be smart about it. Using credit cards or her own name would create a trail Robert's investigators could follow. She needed to essentially disappear for a while, at least until the media frenzy died down. She was deep in thought when the doorbell rang. Freezing, Olivia's heart began to race. Who could that be? Jake hadn't mentioned expecting anyone. Could Robert's investigators have found her already? The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. Cautiously, Olivia approached the front window and peeked out through the curtains. Standing on the porch was an older woman with gray hair, holding what appeared to be a casserole dish. Olivia hesitated, then decided it would look more suspicious not to answer. She opened the door just a crack. "Hello?" she said tentatively. The woman looked surprised to see her. "Oh, hello there. I'm Martha Jenkins. I live next door. I was just bringing Jake and Lily some of my chicken casserole. Jake helped me fix my car last week, and this is my way of saying thanks." She peered at Olivia curiously. "Are you a friend of Jake's?" "Yes," Olivia said, opening the door a bit wider. "I'm visiting for a few days." Martha's eyes lit up with interest. "Oh, how lovely. Jake doesn't have many visitors, especially not pretty young ladies like yourself." Olivia felt herself blushing. Would you like to come in? I can take the casserole." "Oh no, dear, I don't want to intrude," Martha said, though she made no move to leave. "I just wanted to drop this off. Are you a friend from Jake's work?" Olivia realized the older woman was fishing for information. "Actually, I'm an old friend. We reconnected recently, and he was kind enough to let me stay while I'm between places." Martha nodded, though her expression suggested she had more questions. "Well, it's nice to meet you." "I didn't catch your name?" "Olivia," she replied before she could think better of it, then immediately regretted giving her real name. But it was too late now. "Lovely name," Martha said. "Well, Olivia, you tell Jake that casserole can be heated at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. And you're welcome to come over for tea anytime. My husband George and I are usually home." "Thank you," Olivia said, taking the casserole dish. "That's very kind of you." After Martha left, Olivia put the casserole in the refrigerator and tried to calm her nerves. She was being paranoid, she told herself. Martha was just a friendly, perhaps slightly nosy neighbor. There was no reason to think she would connect Olivia to the news story about the missing bride. But the encounter had unsettled her. How long before someone did make the connection? The town was small, and gossip traveled fast in small towns. If word got out that Jake was harboring Robert Reed's runaway bride, it could cause problems for him and Lily. When Jake and Lily returned home that evening, Olivia told them about Martha's visit. Jake didn't seem concerned. "That's just Martha," he said with a shrug. "She brings food to everyone and collects gossip in return. But she's harmless, I promise." "I'm worried about causing problems for you," Olivia admitted. "If someone recognizes me—" "Hey," Jake said gently, putting a hand on her shoulder. "It's going to be okay. This town is about as far off the beaten path as it gets, and most people around here wouldn't recognize a tech billionaire or his fiancée if they ran into them on the street." Olivia wanted to believe him, but she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The longer she stayed, the greater the risk to Jake and Lily. She needed to make a decision soon. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Olivia and Jake sat on the porch swing, each nursing a cup of tea. The night was cool but pleasant. with stars scattered across the clear sky and the gentle chirp of crickets in the background. "I think I need to leave soon," Olivia said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Jake turned to look at her, his expression unreadable in the dim porch light. "You don't have to go if you're not ready." "It's not that," Olivia said, staring into her tea. I don't want to put you and Lily at risk. Robert isn't the kind of man who gives up easily. If he finds out you've been helping me..." "Let me worry about that," Jake said firmly. "That's just it. I don't want you to have to worry about it," Olivia replied. "You've already done so much for me, Jake. More than I had any right to expect from someone I just met." Jake was quiet for a moment. "Where will you go?" "I've been thinking about that," Olivia said. "I have a college friend who moved to Canada a few years ago. She's offered to let me stay with her for a while. I could fly to Chicago, then cross the border by bus or train. Less of a paper trail that way." Jake nodded, though he didn't look happy about the plan. "Sounds like you've thought it through." "I have to," Olivia said simply. "Robert will keep looking until he finds me, unless I can disappear completely for a while." They fell silent again, the only sound the soft creaking of the porch swing as Jake pushed it gently with his foot. "I'll miss you," Jake said finally, his voice so quiet Olivia almost didn't hear him. She turned to look at him, her heart suddenly pounding. "I'll miss you too," she admitted. "More than I should, probably." Their eyes met, and the air between them seemed charged with unspoken feelings. Jake set his mug down on the small table next to the swing and tentatively reached for her hand. Olivia let him take it, her fingers intertwining with his naturally as if they'd done this 100 times before. "It's crazy, right?" Jake said softly. "We barely know each other." "And yet I feel like I've known you forever," Olivia replied equally softly. Jake leaned in slightly, hesitant, giving her every opportunity to pull away if she wanted to. But Olivia didn't want to. She closed the distance between them, and their lips met in a gentle, questioning kiss. It wasn't a passionate, all-consuming kiss like the ones in movies. It was better, tender and honest, a genuine expression of the connection that had formed between them in such a short time. When they pulled apart, both were smiling shyly like teenagers after a first kiss. "That was..." Jake began. "Nice," Olivia finished for him. "Really nice." Jake nodded, his smile widening. "Yeah, really nice." They might have kissed again, but the moment was interrupted by the sound of a car pulling up in front of the house. Jake frowned, standing up to see who it was. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows had parked across the street, and 2 men in suits were getting out. "Olivia," Jake said, his voice tight with alarm. "Get inside now!" Olivia stood, peering around Jake to see what had alarmed him. When she saw the men approaching, her blood ran cold. She recognized one of them. He was part of Robert's security team. "How did they find me?" she whispered, backing toward the door. "I don't know," Jake said, his expression hardening. "But go inside and lock the bedroom door. I'll handle this." "Jake, no. You don't know what they're capable of," Olivia protested. "Trust me," Jake said, his eyes never leaving the approaching men. "Please, Olivia, go." Reluctantly, Olivia slipped inside the house. But she didn't go to the bedroom as Jake had instructed. Instead, she stood just inside the door, listening intently, ready to call the police if necessary. Through the window, she watched as Jake stood his ground on the porch, arms crossed over his chest as the 2 men approached. They stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, looking up at Jake with professional detachment. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Jake asked, his voice carrying clearly through the partially open door. "We're looking for Olivia Chen," the taller of the 2 men said. "We have reason to believe she's staying here." "I don't know anyone by that name," Jake replied coolly. The second man held up what appeared to be a photo. "This woman. Have you seen her?" Even from inside, Olivia could see Jake's posture stiffen. "Like I said, I don't know her. Now it's late, and I'd appreciate it if you'd leave my property." The first man took a step up onto the porch. "Sir, we know she's here. Mr. Reed is very concerned about his fiancée's well-being. He just wants to make sure she's safe." "I said I don't know her," Jake repeated firmly, "and I'm asking you politely to leave. My daughter is sleeping, and I don't appreciate strangers showing up at my house this late." The 2 men exchanged glances. The taller one reached into his jacket and pulled out what looked like a business card. "If you do happen to see her, Or if you remember something later, please call this number. There's a substantial reward for information leading to Ms. Chen's safe return. Jake didn't take the card. I think you should go now. The men seemed to realize they weren't going to get anywhere. They retreated to their SUV, but Olivia had no doubt they were. I'll be back, possibly with reinforcements. As soon as the SUV drove away, Jake came back inside, locking the door behind him. His face was grim. How did they find me? Olivia asked again, her voice shaking. Jake ran a hand through his hair, looking troubled. I don't know. Maybe Martha recognized you from the news and called that hotline they've set up. I need to leave. Tonight, Olivia said decisively. They'll be watching the house now. It's not safe for you and Lily if I stay. Jake looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Where will you go? You can't go to the bus station or the airport. They'll be watching those too. Olivia thought quickly. Is there a back way out of town? Maybe I can hitchhike to the next town over and catch a bus from there. Jake shook his head firmly. No way. Hitchhiking is too dangerous. He paced the living room, thinking, then stopped. Wait, I have an idea. My buddy Tom owns a tow truck. He sometimes makes overnight runs to the city for specialized repairs. He's leaving tonight. I know because he asked me to cover his shift tomorrow. We could ask him to take you with him. Would he do that? Without asking questions? Olivia asked, hope mingling with doubt. Jake nodded. Tom's a good guy. He owes me a favor, and he's not the type to watch the news. If I tell him you need a ride and it's important, that'll be good enough for him. Olivia felt tears welling up. This was happening so fast. She had known she would have to leave soon, but she thought she'd have more time. More time with Jake, more time to prepare. But there was no choice now. Robert's men had found her and they would be back. Okay, she said quietly. Let's call Tom. Jake made the call, speaking in low tones to his friend. When he hung up, he turned to Olivia with a small smile. He'll be here in 20 minutes. He's coming around the back way, through the alley. Olivia nodded, then looked down at the borrowed clothes she was wearing. I should pack. It didn't take long, she had so little. The few items of clothing from the discount store, the toiletries, and the cash her sister had wired her. Everything fit into a small duffel bag Jake lent her. When she was done, she stood in the living room, the bag at her feet, feeling strangely lost. Jake watched her from the doorway, his expression a mix of concern and something deeper, something neither of them had had the chance to fully explore. I hate that it's ending this way, Olivia said softly. Jake crossed the room to stand in front of her. It doesn't have to be ending, just pausing. Olivia wanted to believe him, but she knew the reality was more complicated. Jake, I don't know when or if I'll be able to come back. Robert won't give up easily. It might be years before I can stop looking over my shoulder. Then I'll wait, Jake said simply. If that's what it takes. Olivia shook her head, tears spilling over. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, Jake pointed out. I'm offering. He reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek, his touch so tender it made her heart ache. Olivia, I know this is crazy. We've known each other for all of 3 days, but these have been the most real 3 days of my life. And I think what's happening between us could be something special. Olivia wanted to throw herself into his arms to tell him she felt the same way, but she held back, thinking of Lily, of the complications her presence would bring to their lives. It's not fair to you, or to Lily. Life isn't fair, Jake said with a small smile, but sometimes it gives you something good anyway, if you're brave enough to grab it. Before Olivia could respond, there was a soft knock at the back door. Tom had arrived. Jake went to let him in, and Olivia quickly wiped away her tears. She needed to be strong now. There would be time for emotions later, when she was safely away. Tom turned out to be a burly, bearded man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He took one look at Olivia's tear-streaked face and Jake's grim expression and said, The less I know, the better, right? Jake nodded gratefully. Thanks, man. I owe you one. You owe me several, Tom corrected with a good-natured grin. But who's counting? He turned to Olivia. Ready to go, miss? We should hit the road if we want to make good time. Just a minute, Olivia said, turning back to Jake. There was so much she wanted to say, but time was running out. She settled for the simplest truth. Thank you. For everything. Jake pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. Stay safe, he whispered into her hair. And when you can, come back to me. Olivia nodded against his chest, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. When they finally pulled apart, she quickly pressed a kiss to his lips, pouring all her unspoken feelings into it. Then, before she could change her mind, she grabbed her bag and followed Tom out the back door and into the darkness. Jake stood in the doorway, watching until the tow truck's taillights disappeared around the corner. Only then did he allow the tears to fall, wondering if he would ever see her again. 6 months passed. Seasons changed, summer fading into autumn and then winter. The small town where Jake and Lily lived blanketed in snow and then thawing as the first hints of spring appeared. Life went on as it always does, but for Jake something was missing. He hadn't heard from Olivia since the night she left. He understood why. Contacting him might leave a trail that Robert's investigators could follow. Still, the silence was hard. He found himself checking the news regularly, looking for any mention of Olivia or Robert. But after a few weeks of sensational headlines about the runaway bride, the story had faded from the public eye. Robert had made a few more emotional appeals for Olivia's return, then abruptly stopped giving interviews. The official line from his PR team was that he was focusing on healing and moving forward with his life. Jake wasn't convinced. Men like Robert Reed didn't give up easily, especially when their pride was hurt. He suspected the search had simply gone underground, away from the public eye. Lily had asked about Olivia a few times in the weeks after she left, wondering when their friend was coming back. Jake had explained as simply as he could that Olivia had needed to go away for a while, but that she had enjoyed meeting Lily very much. Eventually, Lily stopped asking, distracted by school and friends and the everyday adventures of a 10-year-old's life. But Jake couldn't stop thinking about Olivia. Sometimes, lying awake at night, he wondered if he had imagined the connection between them. Maybe it had been the heightened emotions of the situation. She, vulnerable and running from a controlling relationship. He playing the hero, rescuing a damsel in distress. Maybe in the real world, away from the drama, whatever had sparked between them would have fizzled out quickly. But deep down, he didn't believe that. What he had felt with Olivia had been real, more real than anything he'd experienced since his marriage had fallen apart. And from the way she had looked at him, the way she had kissed him goodbye, he was pretty sure she had felt it too. It was a crisp April morning when Jake arrived at the auto shop where he worked. He was a bit early as usual, and set about opening up, turning on the lights, checking the schedule for the day. "Morning, Jake," his boss, Frank, called as he came in from the back office. "Got a special job for you today. Lady called first thing this morning having trouble with her car out on Route 16. Asked for you specifically." Jake frowned. "Asked for me? Who was it?" Frank shrugged. "Didn't give a name. Just said she knew you and would only work with you." Jake's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly tamped down the hope that surged through him. It was probably just a previous customer who had been happy with his work. Olivia didn't even have a car as far as he knew. "Okay, I'll take the tow truck and check it out," Jake said, trying to sound casual. "What kind of car is it?" "Small silver sedan, that's all I know," Frank replied. "She's waiting by the old Miller farm where the road curves." "Said you'd know the spot." Jake did know it, a scenic overlook where the road curved around the edge of what had once been the Miller's cornfield. It was a popular spot for teenagers to park, and also a common place for cars to break down due to the steep incline leading up to it. He took his time driving out there, trying not to get his hopes up. It could be anyone. An old girlfriend, a friend from high school passing through town, a customer who remembered him fixing their car before. There was no reason to think it might be Olivia, but as he rounded the curve and saw the silver sedan parked at the overlook, a figure leaning against it looking out over the valley, his heart began to race. Even from a distance, he recognized her posture, the way she held herself, the dark hair now cut into a stylish bob. Jake pulled the tow truck over and got out slowly, almost afraid that if he moved too quickly, she might disappear like a mirage. "Olivia?" he called, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. She turned, and the smile that lit up her face was everything he remembered and more. "Jake," she said simply. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other across the few yards that separated them. Then, as if a spell had been broken, they both moved at once, closing the distance between them. Jake hesitated just before reaching her, suddenly uncertain. It had been 6 months. People changed, feelings changed, but Olivia didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tightly, her body warm and solid and real against his. I can't believe you're here, Jake murmured into her hair, holding her as if she might vanish if he let go. Are you okay? Are you safe? Olivia pulled back just enough to look in. To his eyes, her own shining with unshed tears. I'm okay. And yes, I think I'm finally safe. Jake gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, still not quite believing she was real. Your hair? It's different. Olivia laughed, a sound of pure joy that made Jake's heart soar. That's what you notice first? My haircut? Jake grinned sheepishly. Well, it looks good on you. But no, that's definitely not the first thing I noticed. What was the first thing then? Olivia asked, her eyes twinkling. That you're even more beautiful than I remembered, Jake said honestly. A blush colored Olivia's cheeks, and for a moment they just gazed at each other, relearning each other's faces. I've missed you, Jake said softly. So much. I've missed you too, Olivia replied equally softly. Every day, Jake glanced at the car behind her. So is there actually something wrong with your car? Or was that just an excuse to get me out here? Olivia laughed again. A bit of both. It's making a strange noise when I accelerate, but I could have taken it to any mechanic. I wanted to see you, but I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me. If you'd moved on. Jake shook his head, amazed that she could even think that. Move on from you? Not a chance. The smile that lit her face was worth every moment of uncertainty and longing he'd experienced over the past 6 months. Come on, he said, taking her hand. Let's get your car to the shop and then you can tell me everything. Where you've been, what you've been doing, and most importantly, if you're staying. Olivia squeezed his hand. I'll tell you everything. But yes, Jake, I'm staying, if you still want me to. More than anything, Jake said simply. They drove back to town, Olivia in her car following Jake in the tow truck. At the auto shop, Jake introduced Olivia to Frank and the other mechanics as an old friend. But the way they looked at each other made it clear she was much more than that. While Jake checked out her car, the noise was just a loose belt easily fixed. Olivia waited in the small customer lounge, sipping coffee and watching him work through the window. It felt surreal to be back, to be watching Jake in his element, to be planning a future that had seemed impossible 6 months ago. When Jake finished with the car, they went to the diner where they had shared their first meal together. Betty recognized Olivia immediately and greeted her with a warm hug. Well, look what the cat dragged in, Betty exclaimed. Honey, it's good to see you. This boy's been moping around for months. I have not been moping, Jake protested, though his ears turned red. You most certainly have, Betty countered, winking at Olivia, like a puppy whose favorite toy got taken away. Your usual booth is open. Go on and sit down. Coffee's on me today. Once they were settled in the booth, the same one where they'd sat that first night, Jake reached across the table and took Olivia's hand. So, are you going to tell me where you've been all this time? And how you managed to get free? Olivia took a deep breath. It's a long story. I've got time, Jake said with a smile. All the time in the world for you. Olivia squeezed his hand gratefully, then began. Tom dropped me off in the city that night just like we planned. I took a bus to Chicago the next day, and from there I crossed into Canada. My friend Diane let me stay with her in Toronto. I was not in great shape when I first got there. Scared, constantly looking over my shoulder, barely sleeping. Jake's expression darkened. I'm sorry you had to go through that alone. I wasn't entirely alone, Olivia assured him. Diane was amazing. And I was in touch with my sister in Australia. But I missed you, more than I thought possible after knowing someone for such a short time. Jake's eyes softened. I missed you too. Every day. Anyway, Olivia continued. I laid low for a while using a different name, paying for everything in cash. But I knew I couldn't hide forever. And I was angry. Angry that I was the one in hiding when I hadn't done anything wrong. Betty arrived with their coffee and took their orders, cherry pie for both of them, just like that first night. When she left, Olivia continued her story. About 2 months in, I saw an article about another woman who was suing Robert for emotional abuse and control. She had worked at his company and dated him briefly before me. Reading her story was like reading my own. The same patterns, the same controlling behaviors, the same gradual isolation from friends and family. What did you do? Jake asked. I contacted her lawyer, Olivia said, a hint of steel entering her voice, and I decided to stop running. I reached out to a few trusted friends from my old life, people I knew Robert couldn't have gotten to. It turned out I wasn't alone, there were others. Women who had worked with Robert, dated him, or just been in his orbit, all with similar stories of control and manipulation. Jake listened intently, pride evident in his expression. You built a case against him, Olivia nodded. We did. Not just about his behavior with women, but also some questionable business practices I had evidence of, things I'd seen during our relationship, documents I'd had access to as his fiancée. Was that enough to stop him looking for you? Jake asked skeptically. Not at first, Olivia admitted, but then I did something really scary. I went public. I gave an interview to a respected tech journalist, telling my side of the story. All of it. How Robert had slowly tried to control every aspect of my life, how he'd undermined my career, how he'd made unilateral decisions about our future without consulting me. That was brave, Jake said softly. It was terrifying. Olivia corrected him with a small laugh, but necessary. And something interesting happened after the article came out. Other women started coming forward. Former employees, business associates, even a few other ex-girlfriends. Suddenly, Robert had a PR nightmare on his hands. I bet he didn't like that, Jake said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. No, he didn't, Olivia agreed. His lawyers contacted mine wanting to resolve the situation discreetly. They offered me a settlement with a non-disclosure agreement. Did you take it? Jake asked, though he thought he knew the answer. Olivia shook her head firmly. No way, this wasn't about money. It was about making sure Robert couldn't do this to anyone else. I countered with my own terms. I would stop talking to the press if he stepped down as CEO of his company and agreed to undergo therapy for his controlling behavior. And he agreed to that? Jake asked, surprised. Eventually, Olivia said with a small smile of triumph, after his board of directors made it clear they wouldn't stand behind him with all the bad press. His reputation was taking a serious hit, and in his world, reputation is everything. So it's over? Jake asked. He's not looking for you anymore? It's over, Olivia confirmed. The settlement was finalized last week. I'm free, Jake, really free. No more looking over my shoulder, no more hiding. Jake let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. I can't believe you did all that. You're amazing, you know that? Olivia blushed slightly. I just did what I had to do. And I had help. My sister, Diane, the other women who came forward. And thoughts of you and Lily. The few days of normal life I had here. That kept me going when things got tough. Betty arrived with their pie, setting the plates down with a flourish. Here you go, dears. On the house today, we're celebrating. Thanks, Betty, Jake said with a grateful smile. When Betty had gone, Jake cut into his pie but didn't take a bite. Instead, he looked at Olivia seriously. So what happens now? You said you're staying, but staying where? Doing what? Olivia's eyes sparkled with excitement. That's the other part of my news. Remember how I told you I was a software engineer, specializing in AI? Jake nodded. Of course. Well, while all the legal stuff was happening, I was also working, developing a new algorithm for privacy protection in AI systems, something I'd been thinking about for years but never had the chance to fully explore. Olivia explained, her passion for her work evident. I patented it, and a few companies have already expressed interest. I've started my own small consulting firm. That's incredible, Jake said with genuine admiration. I'm so proud of you. Thank you, Olivia said, her smile widening. The best part is I can do most of the work remotely. I only need to go to the city occasionally for meetings. Jake's heart began to race as he realized what she was saying. So you could work from anywhere? Even here? Even here, Olivia confirmed softly. If that's what you want. It's what I want more than anything, Jake said without hesitation. But Olivia, are you sure? This is a small town. Quiet, nothing like the tech world you're used to. And there's Lily to consider. She's a package deal with me. Jake, Olivia said, reaching across to take both his hands in hers. Those few days with you and Lily were the happiest I'd had in years. All the success, all the money in the world doesn't mean anything if you don't have people to share it with. Real people who care about you, not what you can do for them. I want that life, the simple, honest, loving life you have here. Jake's heart felt like it might burst with happiness. Are you sure? Really sure? I've never been more sure of anything, Olivia said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I love you, Jake. I think I started falling for you the moment you stopped to help a crying bride at a bus stop. Jake's throat tightened with emotion. I love you too, Olivia. I think I knew it the night you left watching Tom's truck drive away. It felt like a part of me was leaving too. Betty approached their table again, a knowing smile on her face. You two need anything else, or are you too busy making hard eyes at each other to eat your pie? They both laughed, suddenly aware that they had barely touched their food. We're good. Betty, thanks, Jake said, not taking his eyes off Olivia. I can see that, Betty said with a wink, walking away to give them privacy. So, Jake said, cutting a piece of his pie and finally taking a bite. Where are you staying? Do you have a place yet? Olivia shook her head. Not yet. I was hoping maybe you could help me find something. I was staying at the Pineview Motel last night, but I'd like something more permanent. Jake hesitated, then took the plunge. You know, my house isn't very big, but it's got a yard, and Lily would be over the moon to have you around. If you wanted to, stay with us, I mean. Olivia's eyes widened. Are you asking me to move in with you? I know it's fast, Jake said quickly. We could take it slow, get to know each other better first if you want. I just thought, yes, Olivia interrupted, a radiant smile spreading across her face. Jake blinked. Yes, just like that? Just like that, Olivia confirmed. Life's too short to waste time, Jake. I spent years with a man who made me feel trapped. You make me feel free. Why would I want to be anywhere else but with you? Jake leaned across the table and kissed her, not caring who saw. When they broke apart, both were smiling like they couldn't stop if they tried. There's just one thing, Jake said, suddenly remembering. We have to convince Lily. She can be tough to win over. Olivia laughed, her eyes dancing with joy. I think I can handle a 10-year-old. Besides, I promised her cookies, remember? I always keep my promises. Later that afternoon, when Lily came home from school, she stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Olivia sitting on the couch in their living room. Olivia. She squealed, dropping her backpack and running to give her a hug. You came back. Dad said you might not ever come back, but I knew you would. Olivia hugged her tightly, tears springing to her eyes. I missed you, Lily, so much. Are you staying this time? Lily asked, pulling back to look at Olivia seriously. Because Dad's been really sad since you left. He tries to hide it, but I can tell. Jake cleared his throat, embarrassed. Lily, that's not— Yes, Olivia said, cutting him off with a smile. I'm staying. If that's okay with you? Lily's face lit up with the kind of pure joy only a child can express. Of course it's okay. Can we make those cookies you promised? Dad's been trying to make them, but they're never as good as you said yours would be. Jake laughed, his heart full to bursting as he watched the two most important people in his world together again. Hey, I tried my best. You did, Lily assured him solemnly. But Olivia's a cookie expert. She said so. Well, I wouldn't want to contradict an expert, Jake said with a wink at Olivia. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed full of cookies and stories and excitement about the future, Jake and Olivia stood on the porch swing, much like they had the night before she left. But this time there was no fear, no urgency, no need to say goodbye. Thank you, Olivia said quietly, nestled against Jake's side as they swung gently back and forth. For what? Jake asked, his arm around her shoulders. For stopping that night, Olivia replied. For offering a ride to a crying bride. For showing me what real kindness looks like. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. For saving me. Jake shook his head, his expression serious. You saved yourself, Olivia. You were brave enough to walk away from a life that was wrong for you. Strong enough to stand up to a powerful man. Smart enough to build a new future on your own terms. I just gave you a ride. Olivia smiled, stretching up to kiss him softly. You gave me much more than that. You gave me a glimpse of what love should really look like, and that changed everything. As they sat together under the vast star-filled sky, both knew that their journey hadn't been a conventional one. A runaway bride, a single dad, a chance encounter at a bus stop. It wasn't the beginning most love stories had. But perhaps that was what made it special, what made it theirs. Sometimes the most unlikely beginnings led to the most beautiful endings. Or rather, not endings at all, but new beginnings. Ones filled with promise, with joy, and most importantly, with love freely given and received. And in the end, that was all that really mattered.